Good afternoon. Welcome to IP Day's Tech Tuesday, the place where it's by educators for educators. And today's Tech Tuesday webinar is going to be Bridging the Digital Divide, Practical Strategies for Adult Education. I am Dr. Nicole Howard Rice. Before we get started, I want to just get a little housekeeping out of the way. If you have a question today, there's a Q&A option for you to just go ahead and type, and we will use that. So go ahead and identify where that's located on your device. Attendees, your microphones are already muted. They're set for mute, so you'll be in a listen mode only. Today's presentation will be recorded, and it will be archived and available within 48 hours. The agenda for today is understanding the digital divide in adult education. We're going to talk a little bit about the barriers, the access, what that really looks like, confidence, what that really means, and the application, how that's really going to be executed in real time. And then we'll talk a little bit about instructional strategies that will actually work with the learners that you serve and leaders if you're on this call with the instructors who have become digital translators and who they serve. So let's get to work. I'd like to start out by just identifying who's in the room. And with that, I'm gonna ask a question about how you feel about what you see on the screen. Understanding the digital divide in adult education. Yesterday is gone and tomorrow is today. When you see that, what do you think of? I'll give you a couple of seconds to add a few things in the chat. Everybody's quiet. Okay, no problem. Okay. Yes, yes, time flies fast. Yes, it does. Yes, we have to be ready and on board. That's the truth. Anybody else want to add to that? Because it's important for me that, okay, technology runs fast. We need to keep up. This is true. This is true. I want you to keep that at the forefront of your mind because everything we talk about today is going to connect back to the learner and to you simultaneously. Good afternoon. Yes, we have to be on par with tech. That is the truth. We can change yesterday, but today is where we can learn and make changes. That's profound. All of everyone, thank you so much for your participation. This is going to be a great session. So, how is digital literacy defined? According to now, we're going to talk about how it reads, and then we're going to talk about how it's defined in your classroom, because that's really where it matters. So, according to the Adult Learning Resource Center, digital literacy goes beyond the basic into technology use. It includes the ability to find, evaluate, organize, create, and communicate information and should be embedded into instruction as a part of everyday teaching and learning. Okay, that's the text version of that definition. What it means is, in practicum, is digital literacy is not just a skill, especially with everything, all of the responses that you all open with. You have conveyed that it is actual independence. It's actually a strategy that sets you up to be able to stand independently within today's living world. Understanding digital literacy, we have to understand where we are. We have to understand the access, what that really looks like, the confidence divide, and the application, of which we decided that we were going to have that lead our session today through our agenda. Now let's just talk about it. The access gap. How many of your students in real time still have issues in 2026 with access to high-speed internet or to internet access at home outside of your classroom? You can throw it in the chat and I'll get to it in a second, but I'd like to have you provide some kind of feedback around that. And how many of your students still have issues with obtaining devices that they can use for practice outside of your classroom or outside of your learning environment if you are a digital or a virtual environment? How many? How many of your students have issues with confidence? And then what is that confidence or lack of confidence rooted in? Most people think digital divide is all about the device. It's a big deal, but it's not. Who has a laptop? Who has internet? Does anybody have something they want to say in the chat about that? What we're seeing more often than not, and throughout a lot of my research, I'm finding that learners are technically connected through their mobile devices. Everybody has internet through their phone, almost. But outside of that, they don't know how to use anything other than social media. They're having great difficulty with really applying it to, in our third quadrant, the application spectrum, into job search and application beyond foundational. Academic research, if you give them an assignment or project, what AI tools would they use to employ to be successful within the assignment? Financial literacy, that's also a major question. The AI tool usage, how many of you as educators are actually driving those AI tools and the usage of those within your classrooms each and every day? That's where the real divide is. So I want us to shift some of our thinking from, do they have access, into what's the confidence level around that, and how can we support them forward through that to begin to close that divide? Do we all agree? Let me check the chat and see what kind of communication I have there. Most of my students don't have divide. Okay. Yes, Jennifer, that's key, because a lot of them don't. Lack of confidence comes from more than access to teach, but it adds to it. Very true. Some of my students have laptops at home, and I encourage them to use them to look up resources. That is fantastic. Question for you, who made that comment? Do you require that they use those same resources in your classroom, and are they required to teach someone else the lesson at home that they learned within your classroom? Is that a part of your instruction? Some of my students, I send them home with packets for them to use as guides. Okay, so you send almost something similar to job aids home to support them outside of you for additional resource support. Most of my students have very little exposure to technology or digital tools. Okay. Many are comfortable with basic mobile phone use. And I'm reading these aloud intentionally. Basic mobile phone use, but they often need support with tasks like using a computer, typing emails on. Okay, so the foundational level learning is still a concern. That's why this session is key. And the reason why I am actually reading a lot of what you all are putting in the chat today is because I want you all to read each other's comments. And I'd like it if throughout our session, if you have an idea, or if you have a resource, or if you have a thought that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to share because you're not in proximity with the person that's in the chat, that you drop it in there and you do an to that particular person, or you do an independent message to them and share the resource, because I'd like for this to be a collaborative effort as well, because it's going to take all of us to make these transitions, as you all are moving and have moved from ABE, GED, and ESL instructors into digital translators because your role has evolved in real time. So I'd like for us to just take this time to share information with each other through this chat space because we're not face to face. So we discussed the access gap, we discussed the confidence divide, and we've discussed the application spectrum. We've mentioned a little bit, but we're going to delve into this more on the key barriers and instructional solutions. So, like the digital literacy barriers, the barriers around cost, support, and imposter syndrome. A lot of us as instructors and leaders, we too deal with imposter syndrome, so we can recognize it within our learners. All of our irons, understanding and misunderstanding the opportunities that are put before us, even as instructors, as well as for the learner, and then the solutions that we can use. We can employ contextualized learning, peer support, as well as that mobile friendly design that was mentioned through some of the responses that you all shared in when we began this slide. So let's look at the definition so that we can really delve into, and please feel free to take notes. The digital divide is about the gap between those who can effectively use technology and those who cannot. And then you have the digital confidence that we spoke about. And I'm going to ask you all a daring question after we review these. And this is a safe space, so I'd like for you to feel confident enough in yourself to share. The digital confidence, where learners believe in their ability to successfully use the technological tools that are readily available for them. Because having access alone is just not going to lead to use. And I know that we think if we give them the support through tangible artifacts, that's going to support. But sometimes it's actually a reinforcement of whatever internal discourse that they're feeling, and they pack it up and put it away just because sometimes it's fear-based. So we know that it doesn't always lead to application. So here's the thing. What we're looking for is meaningful access, reliable, consistent, and usable access that supports learning. So let me ask you a question, leaders and teachers. How confident are you all with the digital tools that are readily available for you to use for your students? If you are very confident, drop a 4. If you know what you're doing, but you could always learn more, drop a 3. If you are secretly treading water yourself, drop a 2. And if you need to be embraced by us all because you're a brand new teacher, or you're a teacher who's come from an era where stand and deliver instruction was the mandate, drop a 1+. I'll meet you in the chat. Thank you so much for your transparency. Thank you for that. This is key. This is key. This is key because we all are in the middle of learning while educating. And it's I don't want to call it taboo, but it's the unspoken elephant in the room. Everyone's saying, oh, AI this and AI that and tools this and tools that. And you're coming out of the baby boomer era or the Gen X era or the millennial era. And we learned a whole nother way. Education, the information that was the gifts that were drawn out of us academically came through a whole nother platform, a whole nother device, a whole nother approach to learning. So to be thrust into this environment and be expected to deliver in full capacity, we have to know, and we have to be reassured that the walls do talk, that they talk, and that they've been talking, and that you showing up needs to be acknowledged, and that you too, as a leader, as an educator, as a learner yourself, educating learners, adult learners at that, the common barriers and that they exist. This is what connects us to a deeper truth. Environments, they shape our behavior. What learners experience, what we experience as learners, it supports or sets the tone for limitation. All of those things directly impact how we show up in the digital space, whether that be to teach or to learn. So when we see and are able to identify the behaviors we have, where we feel encouraged by the person that is facilitating the learning space, we're open to express where we could expand or stand to glean in that environment and go forth from that place. That is where your role as an instructor and as a program leader has evolved into more of a digital translation era. It's taken you straight from instructor to a translator. So you translate information. And in order for you to be able to do that, you must have some level of understanding yourself. So here we have what I like to call the access paradox. So feel free to take pictures of the slides or download. You're encouraged to go to IPDay and have this session to reference. And if you have any additional questions, there's always a way to reach me and we can go through this together. Together we will get there. So you have the technical connection versus the precarious reality. Okay, so you've got meaningful access. It's stable in your classrooms. It's stable with the LMS access because they paid to be within the programs, right? Yes. But what happens if you have class on Monday, Wednesday, and you're off on Tuesday and Thursday, or you have class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you're off on Thursday, and you're at home? What happens to the limitation? It becomes inconsistent. Do you see within the slide, do you see picture B? That's the reality. So they have access on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, there's no class. So there's limited and inconsistent shared access. There's a family surrounding this particular learner. They're on one device. They have two pads pictured here and one device. Can this person effectively take what you shared with them on Monday and actually gather some form of mastery in this inconsistent environment and they don't come back to you until Thursday? Yes or no? Drop it in the chat. Just realistically. And even you as the educator who may or may not work part-time or full-time within your adult ed role, because it's a transit environment in adult education, do you feel like picture B? I'll meet you in the chat. Thank you for being transparent. Yes. So the question is, you picture A. Picture A is that student in your classroom. That student has organized, structured learning taking place. Picture B is when that student doesn't have your class, but they have they have skills to still master on the LMS, whatever LMS that your school or your program uses. But they have a shared device. There's only one device in their home, one device or one iPad, and they're expected to take what you taught them on Monday and be able to employ it on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they don't even see you. Or is that you in that picture? Yes, it is. It's like developing a muscle memory. That is true. That's exactly what it is. And you need a consistent environment to do that. So even you as the digital translator, you're feeling like picture B. That is, I love this group because that is the truth. Learners appear connected, but can actually need to be re-engaged, just like the teacher, just like the digital translator, just like the instructor. They can appear to be ready and then actually be in real time. They may have the device, but it's a shared device because a lot of the times in adult ed classrooms, you're sharing it with the day school. So you may or may not have access to that device. If you don't bring your own laptop, you just never know. The internet, they may have internet and it may be inconsistent. They may be working off of a hotspot, but they're expected to expound upon that muscle memory that you spoke to. That's so important. That's necessary for skill and mastery. And then access. They could have access to the device, they could have access to the internet, but they don't have time to practice because they have to feed a family. They have to go to work at night. They're working two jobs, they're working three jobs. So we all things, and you could be working two jobs, you could be working three jobs. So those things have to be considered as it relates to the expectation around the mastery, and then aligned with the inconsistencies around being able to apply. So here we are. Let's look at picture two. So the initial retention, first day of school, every term, first day of school, no matter how you run your terms. 100%. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to be there. You want to be there as the digital translator, and every adult learner in that room is excited and on fire about learning. And then life starts to happen. And without repetitive reinforcement, you drop down. And then the remaining retention that we see drops all the way down to 40%, and that's if we're lucky. And this is within the first 12 hours of instruction. We have to know this is where we are. So our key insights are going to require daily repetitive push, some way, somehow. And that's something I think we can come up with together today. This is why us sharing our ideas and us dropping little notes to each other throughout the chat are so important. So mm, the real cause is not just the technology. Let's dare to really talk about it. It's about the human experience. It's about the human element within the technology and the learning around it. We face so many challenges as humans, and we're expected to be able to stand and deliver in the midst of, in spite of. We deal with things that shift our mindset, that impact our confidence well before we enter anybody's classroom. We deal with support systems that are inconsistent or sometimes absent. Sometimes we have a peer group. Some learners don't have a peer group. It's just them. They're a one-man band. And then the real world application. Sometimes as as leaders and as educators, we teach from a place in which we learn. Subconsciously, we don't consider that everyone doesn't learn the same and that the application for me may not be the application for you. And that's something that we have to kind of rein in and reconsider sincerely. If we don't address the human side of this and put that in the central element around the technological components, we're going to run into a wall, frankly. The interactive peer mentorship that I suggested at the beginning of our session with us sharing ideas one with each other while we're even in this webinar is going to be key. It's going to increase the learning, it's going to increase consistency, and it's going to totally impact learner confidence throughout this digital era. And then the contextualized training, everything that is expressed or shared with learners in the classrooms, in the learning environments, they have to be practical. Gone are the days when we can stand and deliver in a formula approach that came derived directly from the text. That will no longer work. Not for the generations that Generation Z, the Alpha generation, or the smaller generations now, the Beta generation. We're in a very different world. So we have to use our AI-powered learning buddies. How many of us are actually using AI within the classroom? Let me know, have incorporated that within your learning. Okay, thank you for being honest. Who else? Are you using AI? It's okay. There's no right or wrong answer here. We're gonna grow together. Okay? Okay. Okay. So are you question? Okay, thank you. Question for you as you all are answering. Are you not using it because you yourself are not comfortable? If that's the case, indicate a number one. And are you not using it because you are using it, but you're not you think that if the student uses it, they're not learning? Thank you for that transparency. So one, if you're not using it because you're not confident, and the two, if you're not using it because you think that the learner is not learning if they use that AI tool, like they could be copying. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Go ahead, let's fill it up. 'Cause this is how we grow. This is a safe space. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is another language. Very true. So this is where so so because you are such a great group of educators. I mean, this is why you're here. Yes. For different fears. Because we learned in a very different environment. If you're Gen X or a baby boomer or a millennial, you learned in a totally different environment. Although the millennials are they're the selfie group. So they were the introduction. Once you learn how to use it prompts, it's awesome. That's true. Prompting is very important. Very important. The person who shared that, if you have a resource and you don't mind sharing it, please share it with the group. And everyone, I encourage you to copy and paste that to your desktop. So what we're really dealing with here is a fear of getting it wrong. We have our own imposter syndrome. We have our own educational trauma, all things similar to the learners. And the reason why I'm aligning the parallel is because I think that that's what reminds us that we're all a part of this human experience. And then you have that cognitive overload that's like, oh my gosh, it's too much information. I'm being inundated with tool after tool after tool after tool after tool. And I'm just like, no, just I'll walk away from all of it. That's how we feel, even as educators. But if we pause the same way we encourage our students to pause and remember that our digital house is not on fire and that we are a part of walking out an experience where we ourselves are going to expand our confidence, which will ultimately impact the people that we are charged with serving, i.e., and e.g., the learner, and it will become less overwhelming for us. I want to thank you all for sharing in the chat because I'm going to tell you, you being honest about where you are, it's what's going to help us get our learners to where they have to be so that they are able to sustain themselves in this workforce, the new workforce, the workforce that's on the horizon, and the idea of what learning really looks like. So here we are. So I developed a framework. I love frameworks. Now you'll notice as I share frameworks with you all throughout my presentations, I don't expect you to use them in chronological order because I was a teacher in the classroom and I know that's not reality. It's pretty on paper, it's pretty on slide deck, but it's not the reality. So I give you the framework for you to extract what you need on that day for that learner. Just employ it. It's just a blanket to help you forward. So it says the foundation equipment, confidence, application, independence, the fear of making mistakes. Most of our adult learners have had interesting experiences in their original pre-K to 12 environment and or in their homes when they were growing up through their elementary and middle school and high school aged level of growth. And that's carried them. So here they are. The person that's in your classroom right now is not the person that's 65, 45, 35, 25. You're really teaching, and this is something, if you've ever been in a session of mine before, it is a staple for me that the educator and the leader understands that you are experiencing and you are being charged with whether you agreed to, signed up to, for, or not, the person who actually left school that's living within that aged adult that's in your classroom. So you are healing educational traumas, whether you signed up for it or not. And you do that through kindness, consistency, and readiness. And I know some of you are like, what? But most of you are saying, it's true. And then you have two, the confidence activator. So if you find that a student doesn't have time to practice at home and you're already employing within the classroom the I do, we do, you do, is there some other way that you can support that learner forward and kind of bridge that retention versus application gap? Number three, the inundated element of information. We all know that, and we all, almost everyone on here, I'm sure, uses YouTube. If you do, you attend YouTube University. And in using YouTube University, you have information that guides you through, even with your students learning on the assigned LMS. How many of your programs use a standardized LMS for your learners for the digital element? You could drop it in the chat, and I'm going to come back to it after we talk a little bit about the mentorship scale and the independence around it. Everything being relevant, all of the learning being relevant to the learners in the classroom, as well as to yourself. Because as educators, whatever we teach, we're also learning more often than not. Who here uses that? Okay. Canva's great. I'm glad that you're taking the plunge to learn more about AI. That's going to make all the difference in the world for not only the learner, but for you as well. Yes, this is key. How many of you, as a result of what you're sharing and learning about yourselves and each other today, are going to employ some elements of this framework within your classroom? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. This excites me. This excites me. Try is movement. So it's just a yes, because it's movement and you are doing the best. This is fantastic because what you all are doing is preparing them. You're preparing them to be successful after the high school diploma. The work that you're doing, I'm going to tell you all the story at the end of this session so I just want to drive home how phenomenal you are. So let's look at this and make it real. Let's go to another slide here. Each stage requires a distinct system and instructional approach. We've already talked about the access, what that looks like. We've shared information about ourselves. How many of you all collaborate? We've talked a little bit about that. How many of you all have a team of teachers that you work with? You have a Google Classroom that you all share information in. You have teachers that you talk to at the conferences. How many of you all have things that you use to stay connected? You can be honest in the chat. Yes. Do you have any adult ed instructor friends that you work with? Okay. Thank you for being transparent. Who else has something? If you work alone, if you're kind of in silos, that's most important to share. That's very important. Okay, I'm glad. Fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. If you Okay. The interesting thing about that being the only general education development instructor in your group is that you bring a very specific line of skill to that environment. I think it's wonderful that you all have differentiated information to share. If you work, if you're currently working by yourself and growing, if you're growing in silos right now and you're open to connecting with others, say yes in the chat. And what I'd like to have the attendees do is send that person your name and number or your name and email. Let's do that. Name and email. And so that you all can begin to share information. That's the only way we're going to grow together. That's the only way it happens. I I am a big supporter of PLCs. Thank you so much for sharing your email information for another digital translator. That means everything to me. Because if we're not working together, then what are we doing? How can we truly impact and make the change necessary so that the learners can be able to share the information with their children and their children's children's children? Yes, together we get there. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad that you're open to connecting. That's what this is all about. This is how we close the digital divide, one person at a time, one level of vulnerability at a time. This is fantastic. You're still sharing. Okay. I love that. Can we create a list and send it out? Oh, listen, I will check into that. Make sure I will check into that for you because I think that's a fabulous idea. I would love for you to connect as well. Just have a good time in the chat. Oh, this is closing the digital divide. This is what it looks like. And who's an adult? We are adults in education, along with the students that we're charged with serving. This is absolutely fabulous. You all are magnificent. Okay, so here we are, moving along. We've covered our access paradox. We have our keys and our application pieces in place. So this is a module key that I created. Feel free to take a picture of it. Feel free to employ it. Here we are. So you've got the device availability, that's the access. Internet speed issues, and we have the foundation of access and what that looks like. So we have direct dial-up and we have Wi-Fi. Nobody uses direct dial-up anymore. Everyone's on somebody's Wi-Fi, but you just never know. System module 2, we got the confidence activator. So now we've got bridging the confidence divide from the top down. That's from you to the learner. That's from the person that runs the program down to the program coordinator, down to you, and then to the learner. And then all of the district level or leadership staff that support and provide professional development for you. And then we have the skill activator toolkit that I'll be creating, and that'll be coming out. And then we have the delivery resilience. So just sticking with it. Just sticking with it and being open, of which you all have all expressed today, that you are open to changing and shifting. That means everything. And then software proficiency. Do all that you can to kind of identify 20 minutes of your day to play with some of the tools. Yes, in your own private time or with a colleague. You all just start exploring the tools so that you grow more comfortable. We had one of our digital translators say that they use Canva. You have Canva, you have Perplexity, you have ChatGPT, you have Claude, you have Nano Banana for digital visuals. You've got Gemini, you've got Copilot. There's so many platforms for you to just go in and just explore. Just explore. And then you have your system mentorship. Just predict and scale where you are. Align yourself with your peers. Be peers. If a teacher comes to you and they have a question and they want to talk about something and you're more versed in that area, just remember your first day. Just remember your first time. Just remember when you weren't quite sure. And that'll keep you in a position where you are kind and you are open and you are ready. Remember when you had device challenges. Remember when you didn't when you were sharing a computer with another teacher from the day, and everybody's on the same thing, and the day teacher doesn't like you touching her desktop when you come in at night to teach. She doesn't want you on her whiteboard. Remember those days when a new teacher comes on board and they're kind of confused, and they need a friendly hand, they need the human experience, and they're new to the digital elements that your program is afforded, or they're just trying to learn artificial intelligence outside of the room and learn how to truly integrate it into their lesson every day. Just remember that once you become a superpower with this digital environment, and you start closing gaps, because you will, just remember to reach back for someone else. And also remember the connectivity barriers, why, what that looks like, and why that happens. So if a student doesn't have something and they're not quite ready, you know what kind of love and embrace they need to receive in order for them to feel confident enough to knock down all those walls that come around imposter syndrome, and that they want to be open to learning and moving forward. How many of you all feel that this session is helping you? Let me know in the chat. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Oh, that means everything to me. That means everything to me. You all are fabulous. You are helping me because you are growing. So this particular one, let's talk about our approach. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Let's talk about our approach going forward. What is that going to look like for us? What is access going to look like for you all going forward in your classrooms? What is that going to look like? Is that going to look like you helping students with applying for jobs, accessing services, communicating effectively? What is that going to look like? Is that going to look like you having a fire extinguisher when that digital firehouse starts smoking before the flames even start? Is that what it's going to look like? Are you going to be continuing to exercise as one of the attendees, one of the digital translators communicated, exercising that muscle through digital confidence, just telling yourself you can, you can, so that you can tell your student with conviction that they can, as you all both are developing your skills? What is application going to look like now? Is it going to look like mentorship in real time? I know you're coming in, you got 4 hours to make a difference. I get it, 3.5. And people are coming from work. You're coming from work if you're not working full time in adult ed. But are you gonna be able to give a word because you remember what it's like to learn and you treat it like that? That independent scaling, where you are empowering them enough to take the information, even if it's not as consistent right now for them, but you create an environment that they continue to exercise and exercise and exercise and build strength in that area. Are you going to take that opportunity for independence and allow that student to embrace it in full autonomy with you standing back? It's almost like putting a child, when you learned how to ride a bike, or when you taught your children how to ride a bike, or grandchildren, and you held the back of the bike, and they think you're still holding it, you don't say anything, you quietly release, and you watch them glide out, and they're shocked, and they're so excited, and they don't even know that they're walking independently. That's what you're going to do for them as it relates to digital independence, because you're going to learn how to ride your digital independent bike. Yes. No matter your position, whether you be running the program, coordinating the program, teaching in the classroom, or if you're a learner in another environment. Everybody has a first day, and it takes all of us to make it work. All of us. So, as we're wrapping up, let's talk about it. Let me tell you a quick story. So, the other day, I'm riding in the car. I took a couple of days off, and I'm riding in the car, and I get this call, and I have it set up on my phone to kind of vet my calls before they come through. So I see this name that came through, and it said, "Please answer." So I answer the phone. I say, "Hello." The person says, "Is this Mrs. Rice?" I said, "Yes," because now I'm in work mode. "Yes, it is." The person says, "Mrs. Rice, Mrs. Rice, you're not gonna believe it, but I got my high school diploma today." She's screaming in the phone. So I'm like, "Yay, yay, yay." And all the while, I'm trying to figure out this voice. Okay, I see the name, but I'm trying to make the connection, but I know not to say anything. And then she says, "Do you remember who I am?" And I say, "Yes," because you don't want you want to be excited. So she says, "6 years ago, I was in your class." She says, "I got 3 tests done with you." She says, she said, "I told you I was gonna," and then by this time I know exactly who she is. She says, "I told you I was gonna call you when I finished." She said, "It's been a long time, Mrs. Rice." And she's crying by this time. Now I'm teared up. She says, "But I did it." And she ran me through the whole process of going and getting a 144 and then deciding the next day she was determined to go back and not let that math beat her. And she finished and got that high school diploma 6 years going. But she finished. And then I said, in typical Mrs. Howard Rice fashion, "Excellent job. Never doubted you for a second. What's next?" Settle, relish, be glad, but what's next? And she said, "Oh, Mrs. Rice, I was thinking about," and then she started naming all the things she was thinking about. And we began to dialogue on how she could get there. You see, listen, we spoke about the access, we spoke about confidence, we spoke about the communication, we spoke about the internship, we spoke about the closing of the gap between us and then the learner, between the leader, the coordinator, the teacher, and then the learner. We spoke about collaboration and partnership, sharing ideas. We were transparent and vulnerable within the chat. We let each other know that it's okay to learn, it's okay to not know everything, because all education is drawing out what's already in you. So we spoke about those things. We spoke about next steps, what those things, now that you've been exposed to the framework, what that will look like in your environment with your students. Before we close out, we've just got a few minutes. Is there anybody with any questions you want to ask me? Anything you want to say right now? Yes, she finished. Yes, you did. If you have anything you want to say, you can drop it in the chat. I'm right here with you. We got about 60 seconds before I kind of close this completely out. It was she's such a beautiful person. They all are. Oh, I'm nothing without you. So I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. If you need any of the resources that we referenced outside of the ones that I created, they would be readily available through these links. Again, I'm Dr. Nicole Howard Rice. I have enjoyed you all today. Oh, it's great to see you as well, Dr. Servos. So, with that said, guys, one more thing, feedback is always welcome. Please complete the survey. Don't forget that tomorrow is another fantastic IP Day webinar at 3 o'clock. We talked about partnership today, but tomorrow is going to be all about maximizing partnership and vocational rehabilitation. So you're not going to want to miss that. You're going to want to be in the room, in the seat, ready to learn. Listen, together we get there. I thank you all for being who you are and everything that you are doing to close that digital divide from the top down. You're digital translators. You've evolved from instructors to digital translators. So go out and continue to impact and improve the world. Thank you for all that you do. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye bye.